What happens? A back Hollywood adeptness meets complete adeptness, and neither is accommodating to a backdown. Picture this. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos are hosting their morning appearance. A back Meghan Markle arrives as their guest. But what starts as an accepted celebrity account bound spirals into television history. The cameras are rolling, millions are watching, and Cypher could acquire predicted what would disentangle next. Accomplish a biting you subscribe and beat a animate version beneath, because this adventure will leave you speechless. The flat lights, where a fire is. Kelly readapted her notes. Casual over at Mark Consuelos, who is blockage his earpiece. Their morning appearance had apparent endless celebrities. But today, acquainted, different, there was an electric constriction in the air that alike the assembly aggregation could sense. Welcome back to Live with Kelly and Mark. Kelly appear with her signature ablaze smile. We acquire a batual appropriate bedfellow abutting us today. Addition, who needs no introduction, but has absolutely been authoritative account lately. Amuse acceptable Meghan Markle. The admirers erupted in acclaim as Meghan absolved assimilate the set. Her aspect, regal, her smile, practiced. She wore a prism black blazer that seemed to bolt every flat light, and her movements were deliberate, about choreographed. She acclimatized into the bedfellow armchair with the adroitness of addition, acclimatized to actuality watched by millions. Meghan, acknowledge you so abundant for actuality here, Mark said, his articulation balmy but professional. It's been absolutely an adventure for you these accomplished few years. Acknowledge you for accepting me, Meghan replied, her articulation measured. Though, I acquire to say, I'm a bit afraid by some of the questions I've been accepting in pre- achievement we can accumulate things admiring here. Kelly's eyebrows aloft slightly, a beam of article bridged her face. Of course, we consistently aim for admiring conversations here. Though, I anticipate our admirers acknowledge honesty, too. Honesty, Meghan repeated, her accent, acid aloof, a fraction. That's absorbing, advancing from appearance that's congenital. Its acceptability on celebrity account and morning fluff. The flat fell bashful for a exhausted too long. Mark confused in his chair. Analysis the about face and atmosphere. Will we do owning a ambit of topics, he said carefully, but speaking of honesty, there acquired been some contempo interviews. Area, you've fabricated some appealing austere allegations about your time with the aristocratic family. Meghan's smile never wavered, but her eyes grew colder. Austere allegations. I aggregate my truth, Mark, my lived experience. Anticipation, that's what acceptable journalism was declared to be about. Giving bodies a belvedere to allotment their stories. Absolutely, Kelly interjected. But aback those belief absorb accusations, adjoin one of the world's best admired institutions. Don't you anticipate there's a albatross to accommodate evidence? Evidence, Meghan's articulation rose slightly, and for the aboriginal time, her composed, bluff, cracked, few appetite affirmation of affecting abuse. Affirmation of racism. Some things can't be abstinent in abstracts and photographs. Kelly. The admirers was asleep quiet now. The accepted morning appearance activity absolutely evaporated. Camera operators were accepting signals from the ascendancy room, but anybody seemed arctic by the acuteness architecture amid the three bodies on stage. Mark leaned forward, his announcer instincts allegation in Meghan. You've fabricated claims about conversations, apropos, your son's bark color, about actuality denied brainy bloom support. These aren't aloof, claimed grievances. They're austere. Accusations that acquire damaged relationships and reputations. Damaged relationships. Meghan's accord was bottomward fast. What about the accident done to me, to my family? Do you acquire any abstraction what it's like to acquire an elite academy about face adjoin you? Kelly's articulation remained steady, but there was animate underneath. I anticipate what Mark is accepting at is accountability. Aback you accomplish accessible statements that affect added people. Abnormally bodies who can't avert themselves in the aforementioned way. There has to be some albatross there, can't avert themselves. Meghan stood up abruptly, her armchair abrading, adjoined the floor. The aristocratic ancestors has an elite PR machine, centuries of tradition, and complete resources. I had my voice, and I acclimated it. Sit down, please, Mark said firmly. We're aggravating to acquire a chat here, a conversation. Meghan laughed, but there was no amusement in it. This feels added like an ambush. I came actuality assured professionalism, not whatever this is. Kelly stood as well, her morning appearance hostess persona absolutely gone. This is professionalism. Complete questions about complete issues. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be accomplishing interviews. The words afraid in the air like a challenge. Meghan's face ablaze and her easily clenched at her sides. How cartel you catechism, my adeptness to handle interviews. I've sat aloft from Oprah, from aloft journalists, from Apple leaders and told adapted versions of the aforementioned adventure anniversary time. Mark said quietly, but his words agitated aloft the bashful flat like a gunshot. That was the moment aggregate changed. Meghan's eyes flashed with article dangerous, and aback she spoke. Her articulation was low and controlled in a way that was somehow added aggressive than shouting. Adapted versions. Are you calling me a cheat on civic television? The ascendancy. Allowance was in chaos. Producers aimlessly aggravating to adjudge whether to cut to commercial. But the raw ball advance was too acute to interrupt. This was television gold and anybody knew it. Kelly stepped out from abaft her board adverse Meghan directly. I'm adaged that accuracy should be constant and castigation seems to change depending on your audience. My accuracy doesn't change. Meghan advanced back. But allegedly your adeptness to appearance-basal animal appropriateness does. Mark approved to de-escalate, continuing an accession himself amid the two women. Look, let's all boudier animation here. We're accepting off track, but Meghan spun to join him, her field pointing accusingly. Off track. This is absolutely on track. Mark, this is what happens if back bodies can't handle a woman. Speaking her accuracy aback, they'd rather breach her bottomward than listen. Nobody's disturbing you down, Kelly said, her articulation rising. We're allurement accepted questions that millions of bodies appetite answers to accepted questions. Meghan's beam was bitter. You appetite to apperceive what's legitimate. The actuality that I'm continuing actuality, attacked by two bodies who acquire never faced a atom of the analysis. I've endured. The flat admirers was absolutely still, some attractive uncomfortable, others aptitude advanced in fascination. This was clashing annihilation that had any time happened on daytime television. Mark's jaw tightened. Attacked. We're accomplishing our jobs. Meghan, we're journalists, not your claimed cheerleading squad. Journalists, you're ball hosts who got advantageous with a time slot. Don't abash yourselves with complete reporters. That hit a nerve. Kelly's face ablaze red and her articulation went cold. Complete reporters like the ones who've been afterward up on your belief and award inconsistencies. What inconsistencies? Meghan demanded, dispatch afterpiece to Kelly. Name one. The astriction was so blubbery it was about visible, crackling amid them like electricity. The aggregation was accepting Duke signals from the ascendancy room, but cipher capital to be the one to arrest this celebrated meltdown. Kelly's eyes narrowed as she stepped afterpiece to Meghan, her articulation acid through the flat blackout. Like a blade, you appetite inconsistencies. Let's alpha, with your wedding. First, you said you had a clandestine commemoration 3 canicule afore the accessible one. Then, a back apprenticed for details. You backtracked and alleged it a airy union. Which was it, Meghan? Meghan's face went pale, a fresh ablazed red. That's a clandestine amount amid my bedmate and me. Private? Kelly's articulation rose. You brought it up in a globally televised account, watched by 50 actor people. You don't get to affirmation aloofness now. Mark could see this was out of control, but he additionally accustomed to cute television aback he saw it. Meghan Kelly has a point. If your activity to accomplish accessible statements, they charge to be accurate. Accurate, according to whom? Meghan spun to face him. Her accord absolutely burst now. According to the aforementioned academy that leaked belief about me to the columnist. For years, the aforementioned ancestors that banned to assure me from racist attacks. Nobody's arresting racist attacks, Kelly said firmly. But you've additionally fabricated claims about your sister-in-law that acquired been acknowledged by assorted sources. My sister-in-law Meghan's articulation went alarmingly quiet. You beggar. The woman who fabricated me cry at my own bell's alarm, and afresh let the columnist allegation me for authoritative her cry. See, that's absolutely what I'm talking about. Kelly apprenticed on analysis she had hit something. First, the adventure was that you fabricated her cry. Afresh you addled it and said she fabricated you cry. Which adaptation are we declared to believe? Meghan Zisley were afraid now. Whether from acerbity or emotion, it was absurd to tell. I told the accuracy about what happened. The Alcazar circuit apparatus created the added version. But you didn't actual it for 3 years. Mark, acicular out, 3 years of absolution bodies acquire article U affirmation was a lie. Why? Because I was aggravating to assure her. Meghan shouted, her articulation alveolate through the studio. I was aggravating to be the bigger actuality to chase their rules. About never explaining, never complaining. An attending area, it got me. The flat admirers gasped collectively at the outburst. This was raw, unfiltered effect arena out in complete time, and anybody could feel the accurate acerbity beaming from Meghan. So, you adequate her for 3 years, but afresh abstively to bandy her beneath the bus on a limbracing television. That doesn't complete like protection, Meghan, that sounds like revenge. Revenge. Meghan's articulation absurd on the word. You anticipate I destroyed my relationships, my reputation, my accord of apperception for revenge. You anticipate I put my at accident for revenge. I anticipate you put your accouchement at accident the moment you abstively to air your family's clandestine business on television. Kelly advanced back. and I anticipate you're still accomplishing it every time you accord audition interview. The words hit Meghan like a concrete blow. She stumbled backward, her Duke activity to her chest. How cartel you accompany my accouchement into this? How cartel you catechism my decisions? As a mother, Mark stepped forward, aggravating to achieve control. Nobody's analytic your abilities as a mother. But Kelly raises an accurate point about aloofness and protection. Accurate point, Meghan whirled on him, tears now arresting in her eyes, but her articulation still strong. You appetite to allocution about protection. Area was the aegis, aback, I was accepting afterlife threats. Area was the aegis aback, I was accepting baleful thoughts and begged for help. The flat fell into abashed silence. This was a loft ball now. This was an animal actuality in 18 carat ache, and anybody could feel it. Kelly's articulation ashened slightly, but she didn't retreat. Meghan, if you were absolutely accepting those thoughts, if you were absolutely in that abundant pain, afresh, I'm sorry, but application that affliction to aching added bodies isn't the answer. Aching added people. Meghan's articulation was incredulous. I aggregate my experience. If that aching people, maybe they should appraise why the accuracy is so aching for them. The truth, Mark repeated. But that's the issue, isn't it? Your accuracy seems to about-face depending on what serves your anecdotal at the moment. Meghan's jaw dropped. My narrative. You anticipate this is all some affected plan. You anticipate I destroyed my life, larboard my family, gave up aggregate. I knew for a narrative, I anticipate you fabricated choices, Kelly said bluntly. And now you're aggravating to carbon history to accomplish those choices, assume like anybody else's fault. The allegation, afraid in the air, like a bomb that had aloof exploded. Meghan stood there, aperture open, staring at Kelly in complete shock. For a moment, she seemed clumsy to allege it all. Aback, she assuredly began her voice. It was almost aloft a whisper. But somehow, added Abel than all her antecedents shouting. You acquire no abstraction what you're talking about. You acquire absolutely no abstraction what it's like to be me. You're right, Kelly replied, her articulation appropriately quiet but unyielding. I don't apperceive what it's like to be you, but I apperceive what it's like to be in this industry for decades, and I apperceive abetment aback, I see it. That chat abetment seemed to breach article in Meghan, her composure, which had been arise throughout the interview, assuredly shattered. Absolutely manipulation, she screamed, her articulation raw and desperate. Aggregate, I've been through. Aggregate, I've suffered, and you alarm at manipulation. The ascendancy allowance was in complete anarchy now. Producers were agreeable at anniversary added about whether to cut away. Acknowledged was actuality called, and the phones were campanology off the hook, but the cameras kept rolling. Mark approved one added time to restore order. Meghan, please, let's aloof booty a moment to breathe here. But Meghan was aloft acumen now. She affronted on him with the acerbity of addition, who had been pushed to accomplish their breaking point. Don't you quartet patronize me. Mark, don't you quartet angle there and acquaint me to breathe while your wife accuses me of manipulating my own trauma. I'm not arrogant, you, Mark said firmly. I'm aggravating to acquire and develop conversation. But you're authoritative, that impossible. Developed conversation. Meghan laughed hysterically. This chock-full actuality and a developed chat the moment you absently to emboscade me with accusations and cabal theories. Kelly had heard enough. Her morning appearance host persona was absolutely gone now. Replaced by addition who had acutely accomplished the end of her patience. Cypher ambushed you. Meghan, we asked you questions that any amenable announcer would ask. If you can't handle that, afresh maybe you shouldn't be accomplishing interviews. Maybe I shouldn't be accomplishing interviews. Meghan, afresh slowly, her articulation, demography, on a alarming edge. Or maybe I shouldn't be accomplishing interviews with bodies, who acquire already fabricated up their minds about me, afore I alike airing through the door. We didn't accomplish up our minds, Mark protested. We looked at the evidence, the inconsistencies in your statements, the accident your accusations acquire caused. Evidence, Meghan spat, inconsistencies, damage. Those are absorbing words, advancing, from two bodies who accomplished their active chattering about celebrities and affairs, breakfast cereal. The insult hit its mark. Both Kelly and Mark visibly bristled, and the atmosphere in the flat became alike, added charged. Kelly's articulation went ice cold. At Atomic, we're honest about what we do. Meghan, we don't pretend to be victims while we're advancing bodies who can't action back. Can't action back. Meghan's articulation rose to a breast shriek. The aristocratic ancestors can't action back. They acquire absolutely centuries of ability and privilege. And I'm aloof. One woman with a microphone. One woman with a microphone. Who has done added accident to that academy in 2 years, than its enemies acquire managed in decades. Kelly accursed back. The words seemed to answer through the flat and aback. Meghan went very actual still. Aback she batten again. Her articulation was quiet but abounding with a algid acerbity that was somehow added alarming than her antecedent outbursts. So, that's what this is absolutely about. You're not anxious about accuracy or absorption, anyone. You're agitated that I dared to, claiming the adored aristocratic family. You're agitated that I didn't aloof, smile and booty it like a perceptible little duchess. Kelly's face ablaze, added red at Meghan's accusation, and for a moment, the affectation of able accord slipped completely. Don't you cartel try to accomplish this about absorption some institution? This is about you demography albatross for your accomplishments. Instead of Arena the victim, every time addition questions your story. Arena the victim, Meghan's articulation was almost controlled. Acerbity now, anniversary chat advised, and sharp. I am the victim, Kelly. I was the one who was isolated, attacked, apprenticed, to the point of desperation. But allegedly, in your world, victims aren't accustomed to allege up afterwards, actuality, accused of manipulation. Mark could see this was aloft salvaging, but he fabricated one final advance at accident control. Look, both of you charged a footfall. Back this has gotten absolutely out of hand. But Meghan abandoned him completely, her absorption laser focused on Kelly. You appetite to apperceive what I anticipate this is absolutely about. I anticipate you're threatened by me. I anticipate you can't angle that addition absolved abroad from the boogie account. You've spent your accomplished career affairs to housewives. The admirers gasped audibly. That was an absolute hit, and anybody knew it. Kelly's morning appearance. Ascendancy was congenital on absolutely that affectionate of aspirational fantasy. And Meghan had aloof, alleged it out atrociously and publicly. Kelly's articulation went baleful quiet, threatened by you. Meghan, I congenital this career over decades of adamantine work, complete relationships, and 18-carat affiliation with people. You had aggregate handed to you on a bargent bowl and threw it abroad because it wasn't abundant attention. Handed to me, Meghan's articulation absurd with disbelief. I formed for aggregate, I had I met Harry, I had my own career, my own life, my own identity, and I gave it all up for ancestors that never capital me there in the aboriginal place. Afresh, why did you breach for 2 years? Kelly pressed. If it was so terrible, if they were so abominable to you, why didn't you leave immediately? Meghan paused, and for a moment, article accessible flickered aloft her face. Because I admired him. Because I anticipation, I could accomplish it work. Because I believed their promises that things would get better. And aback you accomplished. You couldn't ascendancy the anecdotal the way you wanted. You ran, Kelly said coldly. You took their money, their titles, their protection. And afresh you sat bottomward with their better adversary and approved to abort them. I didn't try to abort anyone, Meghan shouted, her accord absolutely gone now. I aggregate my truth, my experience, what happened to me. Your truth, Mark repeated, his articulation abundant with skepticism. But accuracy should be verifiable. Accuracy should be constant and castigation keeps alteration every time you acquaint it. Meghan spun to face him, her eyes blazing. My accuracy is consistent. What changes is how abundant of it I'm accommodating to allotment with bodies who acquire. Already absentatively, I'm lying. We haven't absentatively anything, Kelly said firmly. But we're not activity to sit actuality and let you carbon history afterwards allurement questions. Questions, Meghan laughed bitterly. These aren't questions, Kelly. This is a appearance assassination bearded as journalism. This is journalism, Kelly advanced back. Complete journalism asks adamantine questions. It doesn't aloof, acquire, whatever. Anecdotal addition, wants to sell. Narrative Meghan's articulation rose to a Hebrest scream again. You accumulate application that chat like I'm some affectionate of adept architect. Instead of a woman who survived article alarming and begin the adventuresomeness to allege about it. Courage Kelly's articulation was incredulous. Now you alarm. It adventuresomeness to sit in a $75 actor abode and accuse about how adamantine your activity was in a palace. The flat admirers was absolutely bashful now watching this aberrant accident with an admixture of allure and horror. This was television history actuality fabricated in complete time. Meghan stood there for a moment, breath heavily, her easily clenched into fists at her sides. Aback she battened again, her articulation was quiet but abounding with a algitus that was somehow added able than all her antecedent shouting. You apperceive what, Kelly? You've fabricated your position, actual clear. You've absolutely that my affliction doesn't matter. That my acquaintance doesn't count, that aggregate I went through was somehow my own fault. I've absolutely that accomplishments acquire consequences, Kelly replied steadily. And your accomplishments acquire had after effects for a lot of bodies aloft yourself. My actions, Meghan's articulation was almost aloft a buzz now, but it agitated aloft, the bashful flat like a threat. What about their actions? What about the racism, the lies, the complete abandonment? Aback, I bear advice the most. Alike, if all of that is true, Mark interjected, it doesn't absolve what you've done since. What I've done since. Meghan affronted on him, with renewed fury. You beggarly survive. You beggarly body a new activity for my family. you beggarly debris to be silenced. I mean, accomplishment, your affiliation to them for banking accretion while accompanying aggravating to abort their reputation, Mark said. Bluntly, the words afraid in the air, like a final accusation. Meghan stared at him in shock, her aperture, and closing afterwards sound. For a moment, she looked absolutely abashed, that addition had said it so directly. Aback, she assuredly, began her voice. It was afraid with emotion. Financial gain. You anticipate I put my ancestors through hell. Gave up my home, my security, my relationships for money. I anticipate you begin a way to monetize your victimhood, Kelly said coldly. And you're affronted that bodies are starting to see through it. That was the final straw. Meghan's face went white, a fresh red, a fresh white, again. She stood there abashed with rage, and aback she spoke. Her articulation was almost human. How cartel you angle there, and a bait aggregate I've been through to a business transaction. How cartel you abbreviate my pain, my trauma, my children's assurance for your entertainment, your children's safety. Kelly's articulation was sharp. You're the one who put them in the spotlight. Meghan, you're the one who keeps bringing them into this. I'm absorption them, Meghan screamed. I'm authoritative abiding. They have bound up alive. Their mother fought back. That she didn't acquire, corruption and racism and lies. You're traumatizing them. Kelly screamed back. Absolutely accident ascendancy. Now, you're teaching them that ancestors' adherence doesn't matter. That you can bake bottomward relationships whenever things don't go your way. The two women were adverse anniversary added now like fighters in a ring. Both breath heavily. Both aloft. Reason. Mark stepped amid them. His articulation acid through the chaos. That's enough. Both of you. That's enough. But Meghan pushed accomplished him, accepting appropriate in Kelly's face. You don't apperceive annihilation about my accouchement or my family. You don't apperceive annihilation about what I've sacrificed, or what I've survived. I apperceive enough, Kelly said coldly, not a Bettman bottomward an inch. I apperceive you're continuing in my flat on my show, advancing my professionalism because you can't handle actuality asked complete questions. Your show, Meghan's articulation was alarming now. Your appearance that profits off celebrity account and morning fluff, your appearance that congenital its success on the aforementioned abridged ability that about destroyed me. My appearance, that I'm becoming through 30 years of work. Kelly accursed back. My appearance that I congenital on bluntness and complete access with people, not bogus ball and victim narratives. Manufactured. Meghan was afraid with acerbity now. You anticipate my agony is manufactured. You anticipate my children's assurance is manufactured. I anticipate your adaptation of contest is manufactured, Kelly said with baleful precision. I anticipate you've crafted adventure that makes you the hero and anybody abroad, the villain, and you can't handle anyone analytic it. Meghan stood there for a continued moment, staring at Kelly with authentic abhorrence in her eyes. The flat was so quiet you could apprehend the camera's humming. Finally, she spoke, her articulation algid and controlled. You apperceive what? Kelly, you're appropriate about one thing. This is